Yo, what's up, everybody? See y'all coming in, spilling in. Welcome to Business Inside the Game. Business Inside the Game is a platform to talk about, our wins in the culture, to bring the culture together, to talk about topics around voting, education, financial literacy, and really trying to bridge the gap between the culture, the athletes, the entrepreneurs, and the visionaries that are out there, pushing these things forward. I'm excited and I'm sad to say that this is the last of our series with our partnership with the MBPA. Shout out to the MBPA. And we came together to really want to amplify the voices of our athletes, amplify the voices of our community leaders, amplify the voices of the culture. And, we appreciate you all for being on this panel today or tonight, depending on where you are. And I'm excited, extremely excited to kick this one off because you know how I love money. So without further ado, today, our theme is put your money where your mouth is, investing in our culture. And I want to start by introducing our panelists. Usually we have, music and the whole game intros, but we're virtual. So starting first is a Detroit native who has given back to her community in tremendous ways, a respected figure in the financial industry, a prolific publisher and writer, now a best-selling author for her book, Girl, Make Your Money. I hope I said that right. She is a phenomenal businesswoman. She was named Phenomenal Businesswoman of the Year by the governor of Michigan. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Gail Perry Mason.
Oh, thank you for having me. Thank you. Thank you for doing this too. So I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
Next up, a TEDx speaker, a part of the legendary John Wooden Coaches Tree, where he combined the pyramid of success, which I know very well, through his passion of coaching and education to provide opportunity. The founder of Crossover Basketball and Scholars Academy, a nonprofit increasing gender equality in education in India. Ladies and gentlemen, our second panelist, Shaun Jayachandran. Did I say it?
You got it. You got it. You got nervous there, but you got it. I appreciate that, B.
Got it.
Shout out to me for, reading. I think reading is fundamental, so that helped me out a lot. Panelist 3, an advisor for Noah Basketball, a shot tracking company used for scouting. An investor and a founder in the Players Network, a network for the players by the players on Samsung, the co-founder of Kidcaster, a kids fishing company. This dude, you think I invest? This guy is a serial entrepreneur, serial investor, and has a hell of a jump shot and can play some defense. The glue guy, Anthony Tolliver.
Appreciate you, B.
All day.
Thanks for having me on here.
Okay, so previously the SVP of Partnering Marketing at Discovery Education. She has left her footprint at Nickelodeon, at ESPN, and Nickelodeon for Kids. She is the CEO and founder of Goalsetter, an app that helps family achieve financial literacy together. Ladies and gentlemen, Tanya Van Court.
Thank you, Baron. Thank you. Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And last but definitely not least, my Twitter brother, pushing this movement and education on social media. But more than that, he is the Senior Director of Investments at Los Angeles Cleantech Incubator, focusing on renewable energy and other concepts for Southern California. He also serves as an advisor to VC Include, which prepares diverse fund managers, as well as serves on the board of the Homeboy Industry Venture Fund and Fund Humanity. ladies and gentlemen, a great investor, my man, Ahmad-Eldridge.
Hello, everyone. Go Lakers.
Go Lakers. Hey, we coming off the Lakers championship, so this is going to be fun. We talking about money, and talking about creating ecosystems. So I want to start to kick this off by, a big part of our manifesto is lighting pathways for Black and brown women, people who are then underprivileged and underserved. I'd like to start with Gail. Tell us about, what is your definition of ecosystem, right? And then what are you doing, right now to kind of build out your ecosystem and network as far as, education and financial literacy?
So my definition is probably just linking people together to bring our energies together, of course, to make this world a better place. So, and then to have knowledge, but what I'm trying to do now is, definitely work with women when it comes to, I know you talked about the book, Girl, Make Your Money Grow, but also my main investment is into our youth. So I'm creating an ecosystem for them to learn economic empowerment, for them to learn everything from where most business deals are made. They learn how to play golf. We invest in them. So it's mostly a value system. They learn the value of themselves, then they learn the value of each other, and then they learn the value of the dollar. And then they also learn the word opportunity. In the word opportunity is the word unity. So what they do is they come together and try to make money together. And so our ecosystem is really not to have our youth poor. Poor means passed over opportunity repeatedly. So our ecosystem is giving them opportunity.
I love that. Anthony, can you piggyback on that? You've been doing an excellent job of, rallying us, your NBA brothers, even former guys and current guys. Can you talk about the meaning of, your ecosystem and what you?
Yeah, so I got introduced to the concept of group economics about 6 or 7 years ago, and at first I didn't really understand it. Wasn't really something I was really around much. It's not. I didn't grow up around people talking about that type of stuff. Then I started just doing research on it, and really realized that us as a people, we've practiced group economics in the past. Black Wall Street is maybe the most, famous, doing of that. But to me, it's like I see the wealth gap. I see the discrepancies in the way that, Black people are in these financial situations. And I say, I truly believe that, us coming together and working together and building things together is going to be the way that we start to chip at that gap. And, more specifically, obviously in the NBA, we have a bunch of guys who are blessed financially. So none of us have to work together to do, most things. But to me, I think that I'm trying to be a leader, a thought leader in sports, and try to think bigger than anything that I can do individually. And I know that if I get with my brothers and my sisters, and we all are in great financial position, do things that none of us could even possibly, do ourselves. And that's kind of been the theme of kind of everything that I do, for the last 6, 7, 8 years.
That's amazing. That sounds like goal-setting to me, Tanya. Jump in there.
Baron, can I come in? I love it. So, when you talk about the ecosystem, for me, I've never been closer to seeing the whole financial ecosystem at work than when I became an entrepreneur. Because when I became an entrepreneur, what I realized was there's a whole power structure that is cemented in money. And most of that money is in the hands of white men. And most of those white men don't invest in Black women, and they don't invest in Black men. And so what that means is if we don't have access to that capital, we can't launch products that impact our community. So my product, as an example, is Goalsetter. We have a teen and tween debit card. We have a savings account for kids, but it comes with financial literacy attached. Literally, our teen and tween debit card shuts off on Sunday morning if your kid hasn't taken their financial literacy quiz for the week yet. And all of the quizzes are rooted in memes and GIFs from hip hop artists and social media influencers. So it's cool for our kids, and our kids are learning financial education, but those products don't come to market if we don't fund them, going back to Anthony's point about collective economics. And so it is so important for us to support one another to get products into our community that are going to change our children's lives so that our children can grow up wealthy and guess what? Reinvest in our community. And all of those things are things that have been just eyes wide open for me as an entrepreneur, because, you know, when I raised my first $1 million, 86% of that money came from Black people, brown people, and women. White men wouldn't write me a check to save my life. And by the way, I have 2 Stanford degrees in engineering. So those old wives' tales about all you have to do is walk this path and then you'll get funded are not true. So it becomes really important that where we have pockets of money, we invest in each other to grow more pockets of money so then we can invest in our community.
Absolutely.
And let me piggyback on that really quick too. Sorry, B. But
go ahead.
You know, honestly, yeah. I mean, honestly, the epiphany that I've come to over the past, you know, more about a year or so. I mean, I've been investing in consumer products and different things like real estate, all kinds of different things, which is cool. But what I've really come to the conclusion of over the past year, maybe 2 years, is that wealth gap that we talk about, the way that it's going to be accelerated, obviously through group economics is one, but honestly through Black tech, right? Like Black tech to me is the absolute #1 way that we can start creating Black wealth, massive Black wealth that can eventually, you know, work its way back to, you know, our neighborhoods and everything else. It's because, you know, tech, as everybody knows, is, you know, there's massive amounts of wealth that has been made, and then massive amounts of wealth that will be made in the future. Obviously, you have to understand money if you make money, right? So that's the financial literacy part, understanding it from a young age. But, you know, just overall, you know, that's kind of where my focus has shifted, is to even getting more specific is Black tech. So I just wanted to throw that out there and make sure you knew. That's why I said at the beginning, I want to get connected with you, just so we have the connection together and figure out ways to collaborate.
Absolutely. Taj, jump in there. Taj, you're an investor, you know, you're looking at, you're building venture firms, you're investing in, fund managers, please jump in and talk about, this ecosystem and, this group of economics topic that we're speaking on. And you're on mute.
Absolutely. Thank you, Baron. Yeah, there's a quote that a young lady named Connie Rogers says, wealth is how history shows up in our wallet. So what it means is that there's a lot of things that has happened in our history that has impacted Black and Brown communities. However, there's an opportunity, like what Anthony says and a couple other people have said here, that the confluence of education, financial literacy, but the confluence of opportunity can speak to it. In the past, we've kind of come to the point and said that, if you have this certain degree, like I think Tanya just mentioned, two Stanford degrees, I have my doctorate degree, that's the pathway. But we realize that it's not just about education, it's about opportunity and ownership. So similar to what Anthony is talking about, when you're building this ecosystem, it's about really kind of getting ownership in the areas. Shout out to, when we were talking about this idea and with sports and the confluence of sports and business, I want to shout out somebody on the Detroit side that some of the audience may know, I think all of us know as well, is Vinny the Microwave Johnson.
Oh,
the Detroit.
What
people don't realize. What people don't realize.
Don't you even start.
Vinny's a billionaire.
On and off the court.
Exactly, a billionaire. How many people know about Vinny Johnson now? Vinny Johnson is a billionaire of a company called the Piston Group. The reason why I want to mention that is that it's not, and granted, I used to be in the apparel industry. It's not a sexy industry that he's in, but it's the industry that's needed. So I think when we're talking about this, we have to also expand the type of businesses that we're focusing on and the type of industries that we're in. We have to go places where people need the product and we're selling the product. I'll leave you with this. When I moved to California, I'm originally from Texas, and when I moved to California, my wife and I were going to a lot of these hair places and things for my daughters, and I was just really appalled about who was selling the product to people who need it. I took that information from us, and I remember when Barry and I first met, I used to work at a clothing company called Boswell. And one of the things we did, we sold product in China. And the reason we did that, we were taking capital from other communities back to our community. And so that's another thing we have to think about is think about the type of companies that you're doing, the type of industries that you're in, which is why me personally, me being in Cleantech, seeing how everything is going there, it makes sense. Barron is involved in Cleantech with companies that's in our space well, and it makes sense. All of us at our home, all of us are buying products, all of us are getting products delivered from companies. If Governor Newsom in California says all cars must switch to electric vehicles by 2035, guess where we should be at making investments around the infrastructure. So I think the education piece is important, and you have to meld that with opportunity and ownership.
I love that. And then just like continuing on education, Shaun, just talk about, our brothers and sisters, across the water in India, and how education, is a huge part of, financial literacy, and also getting to a generation where that wealth gap is closed. But also, like, put that into your basketball, analogies, coming
Sure.
from, Coach Wooden and that pyramid.
Yeah, it's an important piece. And a thing about me is, my parents are immigrants from India, but unlike the majority of Indian American immigrants who came here, my parents don't have the multiple degrees. My dad is a blue collar, he's a mechanic, and my mom was actually born into an orphanage in India. So if you can imagine how poor it takes for a orphan girl raised by nuns 60 years ago, and what that pathway looks like. And it's nearly impossible at this point, right? The wealth gap is so great. India has the most amount of millionaires and billionaires in the world. And at the same time, the 700 million people who are living on less than $5 a day. And so when you're talking about gaps, that is huge. And the dream that is often sold, and we see it here in America too, is you have to be a millionaire or richer to have made it. And when we compare it, we're always talking about the fact that if we can make 20,000 or 30,000 middle class citizens as a starting point, and then you grow it, the economic game, unfortunately, while we want it to always be a quick hit, sometimes it is generational. For my mom coming literally from having nothing and raised by nuns, to me being here in the US, going to colleges and creating, investing, and then what's the next generation going to be, right? What are my kids going to be able to do? How do you create that gap? And so by having those conversations and starting it, that's really big. And a big part that's a problem in India right now is that only 20% of the workforce are women. Now, how much capital is being left on the table? And so, and on the other hand, as we look to the future, as hearing Taj speak, 1 in 5 kids in the world live in India. So our global population is going to shift in where that demographic is and who's making money and how do we get involved in it. And so part of the program we're doing with Crossover with the education piece, right, is who are your teammates and are you investing in your teammates? So 2 parts that really come out of it. One is to make aggressive mistakes. And that means we're all going to make mistakes, every one of us. So make the mistake happen because you're trying to do something rather than you're passively watching it happen to you. That's number one. As a point guard, I'm sure that makes complete sense. Throw the ball ahead, find the next person versus panicking, holding it, getting trapped, right? Yeah. I'd rather see as a coach that ball go out of bounds because you threw it over someone's head than you turned it over out of fear. And the second is by investing in the education of girls and boys and having the conversation with boys at a young age. And basketball is awesome in India for that reason because I'm talking to a basketball audience, but everyone equally sucks at basketball in India at that young age. And if they're poor, they know the game, but they don't know how to play it. And it actually levels the playing field that the boys can witness how quick a girl can learn.
Well, the girls
what happens if you give them
the girls are better in India because I opened up NBA India and the women were better than the men.
They were.
Yeah, that's where I focused my attention on teaching the
You're 100% right. But by teaching those boys at 8, 9, 10 years old that here's what happens when you have girls who are learning and being part of it. What we're creating is that future generation of opening opportunities. If we have young men who are willing to listen to their counterparts, the young women there, instead of dismissing them in a historical nature, if we can catch them young and they know they're in this together, we're not setting women up for failure, right? We're not empowering a woman and then she goes and she reaches out and then she's in a society where it's not respected and all that's wasted, right? We want to invest in the point where there are men who are lifting them and saying, hold up, let that woman speak. Let's have that conversation. And so again, we're looking at that 20-year economic shift. What's going to happen, not tomorrow.
I love that. And Gail, going to, generation, right? And generational wealth, talking about money matters for the youth in these investment camps, that's an exciting idea. Can you share with us?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I'll tell you about. And I started Money Matters for Youth 25 years ago.
Wow.
And it was because I read something in the Wall Street Journal, and it had, it was cost $10,000 to attend a rich kids camp, and you had to bring $10,000 with you. So the front page of the Wall Street Journal. Of course, nobody looked like me. And I look like, I was the one, he talked about his mom being being born into an orphanage. So was I. So first thing I looked, I was like, wait a minute, nobody looks like me. I need to get kids from the orphanage. I need to get kids, foster care. I need to get people in the inner city of Detroit and do this camp. So I can do the same thing on a $50 budget. So I ended up doing it. So now 25 years later, we have worked with thousands of youth who actually, I haven't had a vacation in 25 years. Now we have our youth come back, we call them young investors. They come back, they work for LinkedIn, they have played, professional baseball, everything. We do money baseball, we do money football, we do the NBA. The NBA is called natural born ability because all of our youth have a natural born ability. So we divide them up in teams, we do everything. We divide up small cap, mid cap, and large cap. So we have this is now a movement of just teaching our youth. And now we teach it all over because of COVID. We ended up having a virtual camp, and that ended up becoming, even larger. We taught in Africa this year for the first time. So COVID ended up becoming a blessing that we could now reach kids in Africa, North Carolina, all over, and not just in Detroit. So anyway, it's definitely a movement that I am invested in. I put my heart and soul into it. And I just think the return is priceless because a lot of these youth now, they'll say, I still have that bank account that you opened for me years ago. They go into their closets and say, hey, I want, Nike, this is my favorite outfit. Okay, well, you got to follow the stock from here on out. They are into the technology industry. So they ended up doing TikTok videos for how to erase hate, poverty, and how to go vote. So we did a whole mission on voting this year. So anyway, I'll be quiet talking about the money camp. I go on forever talking about my money camp.
I love the money camp.
I love it too.
Yeah, I definitely want to get involved. I think, just hearing you talk about it, is a big reason why, for me, I say I got my MBA from the NBA, right? And I didn't go to any major university to get that. And so,
your MBA, your massive bank account. That's your MBA. Okay.
Business association from the NBA, from the National Basketball Association. So associations is cool. And, just really thinking about diving in, the reason why we created this platform was to be the business inside, teach the business inside the game up. Right. So it's very similar to what you're building. And I think this partnership with the MBPA and Anthony, you being on the executive committee, right? Thinking about money camps, right? Thinking about goal setting, talk about how the MBPA and you being on this executive committee, because y'all rock stars, y'all moving needles, y'all pushing weight, and y'all are really creating that next generation of NBA stars to be able to walk a path of ownership and self-ownership.
Yeah, we're just trying to set the tone, right? I feel like as parents, when you have kids, you set the tone in the household, right? Like you set the goals for your family, you go out and you do the things that you want your kids to do, and you set the example that you want them to follow. So for us, all of us, there is like one or two younger guys on the board, but we're trying to groom them, right? Like we're trying to groom them, and then us as leaders in the NBA, guys are looking up to us and saying, what are you guys doing? How are you guys using your platform? And for us, we got a chance to see some of the guys before us kind of spark this new wave of it's cool to have nice cars, it's cool to do different things, but it's way more dope to invest and grow, right? It's way more dope to really learn and have ownership and do things that's never been done before. I mean, that's why me and Chris Paul and some other guys on our board, we got together and helped to create Players TV, right? We wanted to do something, outside the box, something that's never been done before, and challenge the next generation to do even more, to do way more than us, right? So, that's what it's all about, really. We're fighting for, our rights and our things within the NBA, and making sure that we get paid and make sure we have all the benefits and all that stuff. But, off the court, we're really trying to set a new tone of I know LeBron said it, and he has a whole campaign, more than an athlete. Well, we're trying to be the epitome of that. It's just, we're way more than just athletes. So I just want to make sure everybody understands that. And we're going to go, not only just say it, but we're going to go prove it.
I totally agree. And you are definitely taking those steps and, dudes in this generation. And just want to transition to just some shocking facts. Currently, less than 2% of VC funding goes to Black businesses. About 1% of that is allocated to funding Black women founders. Taj, Tanya, go ham.
I remember, Barry, when we had the stat, and it was only a few years ago, where only 16 Black women raised over $1 million. That's atrocious, and luckily it's changing. I think unfortunately it took the death of people like George Floyd, Breonna Taylor for that to happen. But I think the thing that's changing, and the reason why I'm even involved in organizations like VC Include, is that you're getting more people who look like myself, who look like Tanya, who look like Gail, who are becoming venture capitalists. And shout out to people like Terry Burns, who just became a partner at Google Ventures, African American woman, young, 26. And so, I think the more of that happens in our industry, the more you'll see a lot of Black founders and products like things that Tanya and Gail are creating are important, and we can see it. And so I think it really kind of starts out with really kind of training a lot of the money managers that are on my side. And not only that, giving them the freedom too. I can tell you with our fund at where I work at LACI, when we invest in companies, we not only look at the viability of where they're at and what they do, we also make them look at 3 different things. We say, do you have, of course, environmental impact? We want to make sure we have climate justice. But not only that, we look at economic impact. Are you creating jobs in opportunity zones or low to moderate income communities? Are you hiring from those communities? And not just low-level workers. And then the last piece of that, we force on, we look for the companies to invest in. We say, do you have a woman, underrepresented person of color, woman or male, on your C-suite, CEO, CFO, what have you, your senior leadership that can actually write checks, hire and fire, and your board? The reason why we say board is because that in turn forces the venture capital funds, who will normally sit on the board of companies, to have people of color, to have women on their team so they can actually put them on there. So I think things like that really change the aspect and how people and funds look at investing in it. And then also too, Barron talks, it costs us nothing. I was tweeting just now about Gail's book because it costs us nothing but a little bit of time to really support each other. And I think that's the other part about it as well, is that when you hear of things that are happening, support it, talk about it. The more you talk about it, the more people really grab around it. So for us, and I'm speaking to the Black man out there, the best thing we can do is go out and find out what businesses that are owned by our women and support them, talk about them, buy the product, and that's how you make this change.
Thank you.
Yeah. Tanya, come on. Follow that up.
Look, I'm ready. I've been ready. So, you know, when I started Goalsetter, I went and I talked to a bunch of investors, and what I heard consistently was kids finance is not a thing. And about a year and a half later, a white man came along and went and wanted to talk to investors. And guess what? They poured millions of dollars into his company. And then another year went by and another white man came along and they poured millions of dollars into his company. And by the way, all of that just disadvantages us as Black folks, right? Because now we're competing. Not only do we not have the money to do what we need to do, now we're competing against people who have millions upon millions of dollars. And I'm doing 7 jobs for their 1 job because they had enough money to hire 7 people at the outset. So after that happened, I went back to the VC community and I said, hey, look, you're funding kids finance. Now you should fund me. And then what I heard was, well, now you have 2 well-funded competitors. I can't possibly fund you now. Right? Come on, man.
That's what they say.
That's how it goes, right? And so, you know, the point is that we will always have more obstacles put in our way than everyone else. And we have to figure out, as we always have, how do we overcome those obstacles? Well, the things that we have in our favor are we have creativity, right? They have always looked to the Black community for the creativity that we bring to the table. As I said, we have a debit card that freezes on Sunday morning if your kid hasn't taken their financial literacy quiz. No one's come to the market with that. It's groundbreaking. Right. But, you know, I did. But we also have community, and that's exactly what Taj was talking about. And if we leverage our community and help one another, then they don't get to pluck off the members of our community, like the Anthonys of the world, to say, I'm going to pay Anthony a certain amount of money to promote my product, right? And make this non-Black product really hot and really popular, because Anthony will say, no, I'm doubling down on Tanya. That's who I believe in. So you need to invest in more Tanyas of the world, and then you'll get me along for your ride, VC, right? And so those are the kinds of bridges that we need to firm up in our community. And I'll just give you an example from my own perspective. Last week, we're in the middle of a raise right now. So we had a prominent financial institution, a fintech company, that said they wanted to invest in us. I called them back to have a second conversation, and they said, actually, we don't really want to invest in you, but we love this Black Kids initiative that you have going, because we're trying to get 1 million Black kids saving. We launched that on Juneteenth. We love this initiative, so we actually think we want to acquire you instead. And so then I was, you know, as I was on the phone call, I was looking at their board, I was looking at their executive team. There's not a single Black person on the board or the executive team, right? And so, you know, to that point, they didn't care about my initiative. They see we have the dopest app in the industry and have raised the least amount of money in the industry. And so they're like, oh, wow, I can pluck this off, you know, quickly and easily. So all of those are the ways in which, you know, Black founders get burned out, taken advantage of, et cetera. But we can collectively reverse that curse when we work together to do so, because our culture leads the culture of America. And so if we, you know, say that something is cool and we double down on our own products, those products are going to lead what all the rest of the kids, all the rest of the families, all the rest of the everybody in America is doing. And then our companies will make money, and then we will have more money to invest back in our communities.
Tanya, I got you. Black Girl Magic. We
Black
got
Girl Magic, Gail.
Black Girl Magic right here. So we're gonna get you a bigger hiring, you know, in for getting some money right now. You're in the process. We'll see what we can do together.
I got no money. But I think, you know, it's to what everybody is saying, right? We have yet, you know, and we're moving in that direction. We have yet to create a value proposition for our community, for our entrepreneurs, for our investors, right? And now let's say Tanya has the right strategics, right? Tanya raises enough to have, you know, the 7 people that she needs, right? Well, now when those companies come along, she may not need the money. And the value, right? The value of what she's created, we're all tapped into it. So that value can never really be wiped away. And so just kind of moving through, like, how do we hold corporate America accountable for these brand initiatives, for these multicultural investments into underserved communities? Like, what is our plan, or I would say, what are you all doing individually, and then collectively, what is that vision and that goal to actually make these things, to make these things happen?
Yeah, Barrett, let me add this, and I think this is really interesting for what you just said is, you know, and you know, I love my industry, and I think venture capital is great, and there needs to be some changes, but don't get it twisted. I think Silicon Valley has made the assumption that raising capital and how much you raise is more important than a profitable business.
Yes.
What it's about is about profitability. It's about making sure you have a product that gets into that. So let's start there and really realize that even for me, the most you know, lucrative business that I've been an investor in was the business that raised the least, and that was acquired because they had so much market in their value. So I want to make sure we understand that piece of it as well, because, you know, at the end of the day, I'm a VC, and I always say that venture capital is not for every business. It's rocket fuel. But what if you're building a bus? What if you're building a car? You don't really need that type of fuel. So understand that there are a myriad of different types of investments that are out there, from family offices, which a lot of, you know, the players should really think about and really think about opening, to ultra high net worth individuals, to everything else. And then also too, there's a lot of opportunity there to be collective. You know, there's a site called Republic that a lot of people really support us in the crowdfunding space. And it's a really great way for people who may not have millions of dollars, but want to kind of get into the space and invest in companies, you know, early on, to really look at. And so those are some things to really kind of build this sense of community and to really push that out there.
Oh, who else?
I'll jump in from.
That was great. Go ahead, feel free.
I was going to say, the same conversations that you guys are having is the same ideas with nonprofits being built in Black and brown communities and from the same area, right? We will see the speakers get up from white communities who will be crying on stage, and I went to here and I've been there, but they're coming from really well-backed environments, right? And I'm going to start a nonprofit with $5 million behind it, and I'm going to attract my celebrity friends, and all of a sudden, they're not necessarily doing anything innovative. They've seen what smaller Black and brown nonprofits have created, started, and then they're going to try and replicate it, right? You know, you said, you know, Baron, you talked about going to India and helping the NBA start there, but how many programs have we seen that were not started by Black and brown people who have gone into India, into South Asia, and into Africa, being like, oh, here's what I'm going to do. I have no test market research. I've never run a medical clinic in my life, but I'm going to go save kids on the other side. And people will pour extra money into it because it comes from a branded perspective right off the bat, versus, hey, we've got these creative ideas. We're showing that it works. We're doing it on shoestring budgets. And I'm hearing like Tanya and Gail speak, and I'm like, oh, I'm seeing exactly this exact conversation. Because again, how are we crowdsourcing that and funding it, even though it's not the immediate sexy look, right? That immediate like, ooh, I know those 3 people because I've seen them on social media. Let me put a check mark. Let's go to them, versus, oh, who's actually doing the work? How does it come across? Is it culturally relevant? You know, how are they adapting? What are those other spaces that are happening?
And Shaun, you brought up a good point. At the nonprofits, they'll get somebody to come up there and say a sad story, like say, start crying. But all the white nonprofits will get a Black person up there, not a white person now.
Yeah.
Black person up there, crocodile tears, the whole hookup. And then we turn around and then they give their money. It's like, then they give their money to this nonprofit, and that person doesn't profit. Right. You know, who's up there in the crocodile tears. So no, and then they just give the money. So we got to look at, you know, like our mindset has got to stop being nonprofit. You know, when we do things, I teach my kids all the time, you know, nonprofits are wonderful, great, but we can't run our houses, our homes like a nonprofit, or our businesses like a nonprofit, or, you know, our life like a nonprofit, our budget at home like a nonprofit, you know, because we can't receive grant money for that kind of stuff. So anyway, Shaun, that was a good point. Thank you.
Barrett, Baron, just really quickly, you asked how do we hold corporate America accountable? And one of the things that I found is that, we're having a lot of conversations with corporations about partnerships right now. And the people who I'm talking to are very different now in corporate America. Corporate America has said, we need to support the Black Lives Matter movement. So now we're going to put 5 Black executives on a team and let those Black executives actually decide where the money goes. That's never happened in the history of corporate America. And so my conversations are so much richer now because the people sitting across the table understand exactly who I am, understand exactly where I come from, the problem I'm solving, and the impact it will have, and how my company is very different than the next company that may come in or the last company that came in. And that's such a different place to be than before. So I always tell people, the Underground Railroad is still alive and well. It just, because we all need each other to continue to get north. But we have to seize our power in each of these organizations that we're in, because all of these organizations have to work together in order to make us collectively successful.
Yeah, and to add this, Baron, if there are corporates watching this, one way you can be effective with this is supplier diversity. Really look at your suppliers that you're working with. Think about Black and brown companies that are suppliers in this space. Now, turning it over to us, that means we have to be in the business to supply these companies. We have to think about, as we're building businesses, not just business for consumers, and that's great. B2C companies are fantastic, but think about businesses that come to, there are B2B companies that supply these businesses, and that's why I mentioned Vinny in the beginning. And for those that don't know, the Piston Group that he works in the automotive space. Most of us are driving cars or some type of transportation, and so that's needed. And so I think that's, the great thing about what Tanya and what Gail are doing, and even Shaun is preparing the future for these children. And I want the children to understand and look around and say, what the world is going to look like 10 to 15 years from now. When we talk about this whole out there about financial leadership, I wish there were organizations out that Tanya and books that Gail created when I was young, because all I knew for me growing up in Dallas was about basketball and rapping, right? And but I was thankful to have what I kind of call a ghost mentor that I looked at, which is Reginald F. Lewis. And if people don't know who Reginald F. Lewis was, he was the first African-American billionaire that got into private equity. I didn't even know what private equity was. Never heard of the term until I read his book in high school, and that's what got me on the path. So a lot of times too, things like this are really important because sometimes we can't be what we can't see, and we don't know what's out there to be involved in. And it's great for us who've been down this road before, who are the elders in this space, to talk about it. And that's why, like even for me on social media, I'm talking a lot. I'm always out there because I want to influence someone else to take my place. The goal for every VC that's out there, if you're like me, is to leave that company and make sure 3 other people who look like you replace you. That's how we're going to get big, and that's what cooperative economics is.
Right.
That I love that, Anthony. Just talk about, you guys are tearing away the scar tissue of, just being an athlete, right? Benny Johnson. There are I won't say there are a few examples of athletes that have done this in the past, but you guys are really kind of pushing this forward. Talk about seeing, believing, being able to touch, like the capacity of, like your journey as an investor, education, experiential, how has basketball impacted that and impacted you in your decision-making and everything?
Well, I've always first of all, I've always loved the game of basketball. It's been, I'm a huge fan of the game. I just love playing. I love everything it's brought, obviously, to me and my family. But I've also always viewed basketball as a tool, right? Like I've always known that this wasn't going to be what I do for majority of my life. So far, it has been what I've done for majority of my life, but my life is not, hopefully not halfway over, right? Like I got a lot more non-basketball years to work and to move around this earth than basketball years. So I've always said, well, for me personally, I'm always going to view basketball and everything it brings as a tool. It's just a tool, obviously make great money, but also make great connections and be able to get into rooms that I couldn't get into if I wasn't an NBA player, you know, just straight up. And so now I'm like, okay, how can I leverage those relationships? How can I leverage those opportunities into, you know, building great wealth, but not only for myself, but for all those around me as well, my family, my friends, and those people who I associate with. And so, you know, that's how I've always kind of viewed it, and that's how I've always approached it. And, you know, I have a personal goal of mine is to, you know, to help, you know, 100 people make $1 million, right? And, you know, for me, it's an arbitrary number. It's an arbitrary number. It's an arbitrary number of people and an arbitrary number of money. You know, $1 million is, you know, whatever. But it's just a goal, right? It's something I wanted to set so that I'm not so focused on myself, right? I'm always figuring out ways to work with other people, to help grow other people, to help bring value to other people. And, you know, naturally I, you know, try to make sure that those other people are, that we are well represented in those other people, you know, because I have the opportunity to do so. And I have, you know, like I said, the tools that basketball has provided has put me in such a unique position of adding value to so many people, you know, and that, you know, I don't have any other, you know, I think that that's just the best way to move forward and not just be all worried about if I was just worried about myself, I wouldn't work another day in my life. You know, I would just go chill with my family on the beach or something somewhere. But I just know that there's so much work to do. You know, us as a people, we have such a hill to climb that every single one of us that has experienced success, I think it's an extra responsibility on us to be that first mover, you know, in changing everything for Black people in general, and just being able to figure out ways to, like I said, collaborate and do things together, and not go out there and replicate everything. You know, you don't have to. You know, I don't have to. Okay, I think the financial literacy app and all that stuff, I think those are great ideas. All the stuff that you guys have talked about today, they're all great ideas. I don't have to go do it myself. Y'all are doing it. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, like, that's another mindset I feel like we have to adopt is, you know, even if it's not you don't get all the attention or the glory or the whatever, but it's all about just having it be successful, right? If we have a bunch of businesses that are, you know, get off the ground, but never get going and never get to completion, then they're not really bringing the maximum amount of value. So I think that just getting to that mindset of, you know, hey, how can I bring value to others? I think will ultimately be a huge step in the right direction for our community.
I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I just want to
it's interesting.
Something real
go
quick.
ahead.
Me and a good buddy of mine, we were on a plane 10 years ago, I would say 10, 15 years ago. And we sat next to each other, and I said, dude, what are your goals? He said, I want to be a billionaire. He said, what are your goals? I said, I want 100 people to be millionaires. And so with that vision, bro, I mean, that's, you know, I would say you are definitely on the right trajectory, and that is the right understanding, you know what I mean, that we need and have to have in order to talk about what we're discussing on this panel, right? It's putting your money where your mouth is and building out that ecosystem. Go ahead, Taj.
No, I know we're at time. I was just gonna say I'm loving that both of you talking about that being looking out not just for me but for we, and I think that's really important. You know, and I'll kind of end with this. Right now we're being loved, right? Like Tanya said, there's a lot of Black folks that are there and post, you know, what's been happening with a lot of the protests. It's this love affair of trying to support Black businesses. Will it last? Right? We've been here before with protests in 2015 with Ferguson. We've been here before with protests with Trayvon Martin. Hell, we've been here before with Emmett Till. So what's changed and what needs to change? And what needs to change is what Anthony talked about, what you talked about, which is being collaborative and realizing there's more power. I'm loving to see people like Malcolm Jenkins, people like the Kingdom Fund with Derek Morgan and all these athletes from baseball to NFL to NBA really kind of doing it. And not only that, they're saying, I want to effectively invest in Black-owned businesses. So kudos to that, and kudos to all the people who are realizing that, just like Anthony says, it is better to be collective and make that thing happen than trying to do it on your own and rowing the boat uphill.
Love that. And then as we wrap up, I want to go around and what we do in Business Inside the Game is because there is something, a core value and a core trait that you have or that I have that I bring to every team and every situation that I'm in. And so we always like to impart words of wisdom for our entrepreneurs out there and people who are looking to talk about, what is the key ingredient or the business inside the game that you bring, in your walk and in your path and direction. Let's start with Gail.
I had a feeling you're going to start with me.
Gail, you've done it before, Gail. You've done this before.
And I think the core value that we all bring, you can just feel it here. You can feel the love.
Yeah.
And I believe love means let obstacles vanish effortlessly. As a people, we have many obstacles. We have so much love in our community. Black people have so much love for one another. So all minorities do. We have so much love. If we just know that love brings obstacles, but they can vanish with collaboration, with love, and with communication with each other. We communicate with each other. And and Anthony said it, he hit it. Like, look, we're doing financial literacy. He's doing Players TV.
Right.
Support us. I'm like, I can't wait to tell all my kids in Money Camp, all 6,000 of them, they're going to know about Players TV. They are going to know about that. And whatever we can do to support each other, I just think that love is the key. And like I always say, and I'll end with saying this, my drink, steal, swear, and lie is what my core values are. Drink from the everlasting cup every single day of my life. Swear to be a better person than I was yesterday. And then steal a moment to help someone out that's in worse shape than you're in, and then lie down and thank God every single night for every single thing.
Love it. Shaun.
My goodness, it's so much inspiration sitting around here and listening to everyone today. For me, it's, I'll use the old basketball adage, and it's if you're the best player on the court, you're probably at the wrong playground, you're at the wrong court. Right? If you're trying to get better, if you're trying to be it. And with that though, it's because you're putting yourself around better people. Put yourself in the rooms, that collective team. So much of today we've been talking about, you don't have to do it alone. And we've been sold that goods. Those of us who didn't grow up with money have been sold that goods for so long, right? You have to be perfect. You have to do it alone. You got to prove that you belong. Tanya starting by saying she has 2 Stanford degrees, right? Like, we were always told that we have to do X. But if you're on the right court, if you're putting yourself in the right place with the right teammates, and you're just trying to grow, Taj talked about, he already tweeted out about Gail's book. Gail talked about Players TV and hyping Anthony, right? If that's all we're looking to do, I lean on that old JFK quote of like, a rising tide lifts all boats. If we're just always looking to rise and lift each other, that's going to lift all of us. And that's really important at the end of the day.
Come on, Taj.
I love that quote, Shaun. I was talking to somebody and I actually presented to Congress and I'm used a quote and I said, a rising tide lifts all boats, but that's the assumption that all of us have boats. And so the key to that is for us to make sure that the person to the right of you, the person to the left of you has a boat, whether it's a raft, it's a float or whatever. And the key to that, again, is to really kind of promote that. One of the things I want to say, and it's good, we're for the folks that are looking out here, we're partnering with JP Morgan in December to really kind of focus on training athletes to get more impact in venture and understand family office and everything like that. And I think the cool thing about this is that summits like this that Barry has been putting on are phenomenal. I love that they're taped. I love that they're being spread because people are getting knowledge. And, this whole panel from Shaun to Jay to Gail and to Tanya and to Anthony is really, really great to learn from all of you and then to go out and really kind of kind of really support these things that you guys are doing. So I appreciate that. I think the power that I bring for me in this is just really kind of serving the landscape and the knowledge. I used to be an economist by trade, and I was going to go into academia, and I realized that my classroom is not the classroom there. My classroom is the world. So I kind of really take that time to try to educate and make sure that the people behind me do much better than me, and that's what the focus is.
Love it. Come on, Tanya.
Don't let the obstacles distract you from God's purpose for you. Treat those obstacles as just obstacles and not barriers. They're obstacles that you can go around, you can go under, you can go over. They don't have to be a barrier to your dream, to your success, or to your purpose. I didn't want to be an entrepreneur. There was no part of my fiber that wanted to be an entrepreneur. I was an executive at Nickelodeon making $500,000 a year. My family was chilling. It was all good. And then my daughter said to me one day, she was 8, about to turn 9, and she said, "Mommy, for my 9th birthday, I really only want 2 things, enough money to save for an investment account and a bike." And in that moment, I looked at her and thought, if I can get every Black kid to say that, I can change the world.
Mm.
And I felt like that was God putting that in my mind and my heart, that why can't I get every Black kid to say that? And if not me, then who? Who else came from a background of education and entertainment and could make things compelling and engaging for our kids? Who else would love our kids in the way that only a Black mother with 3 kids can love our kids?
Mm-hmm.
If not me, then who? And so I left corporate America to do this, not because I wanted to do this, but because I felt like it was my purpose. And I feel like it has been a road that has been fraught with obstacles, but I have kept going. And 3 weeks ago, we were named the app of the day in the Apple App Store, right? So, you know, so we're on our way. But if I had stopped, then, you know, all of the kids who we're trying to serve wouldn't get served. So you keep going, keep pushing. Even when things get hard, you have a community around you who, as Gail so eloquently said, loves you.
Anthony, wrap this thing.
Man, honestly, listen to everybody that's on this call. That's what I would say to anybody listening. I don't even know if I can add to that. I mean, honestly, all those things are.
Well,
you know, I'm a fake.
You're a glue guy, right?
Yeah.
Or it's you. What do you bring? You know what I mean? Because you've been a great participant and a voice in this conversation, and you know I see it in you. So you know, share that. Yeah. I mean, you know, honestly, like, you know, just like, you know, a couple others have said. I mean, honestly, my biggest piece of advice is to stay grounded in your faith. You know, because I don't know any other way. That's just the only way. That's how I've been my entire life. And honestly, just like, you know, Tanya was talking about, just like, you know, really just pursuing your purpose and living on purpose, right? I think that is kind of, you know, being able to identify what you feel you're led to do on this earth. You know, like she said, she was chilling. She was living good, eating good. People, you know, most people would, you know, think that would be the life. But it's like, if you're not fulfilling your purpose, then, you know, what are you really doing? So I feel like, you know, all of us are on this call for a reason. I feel like, you know, a lot of these types of things happen for a reason. It's because, you know, there's meant to be something to come out of this, you know, people listening to this, getting something out of it, but also even possible collaborations and partnerships through meeting in these types of environments. Because once you meet people who are on the same accord, you know, hang on to them. You know, I think that is something that everybody on this call can completely agree with. It's not as common as it should be, but I feel like, you know, as you're meeting people who are on the same accord, who have, you know, similar goals and similar mindsets. You know, Baron, I had no clue that, you know, your mindset, like it said, was almost verbatim of what mine is. Hey, you know, if you can have that mindset of just thinking every single day how you can bring value to other people, naturally you're going to be successful, right? And so I think that you know, just putting others first would probably be my number one thing.
is putting others first and allowing, yourself to take a step back and say, how can I help others be successful? Because ultimately that's going to turn into success for yourself as well. So, and at the end of the day, it's going to be, to me, even more fulfilling, because now not only are you successful, but you're bringing success to another person, another family. You could impact literally another person's entire lineage by bringing value and pursuing your purpose and fulfilling your purpose.
Love that. I would say faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. And I would also say that if you put yourself first and build a boat for your brother and sister and make sure they're taken care of, right? And you do that with love, right? There's not an obstacle, right? There's not a journey, right? There's nothing that can get in your way, because when the tide rises, all the ships rise as well. And I think that is the conversation for our panel. This has been phenomenal. This has been, kind of the end of our series, and really just can't express enough this partnership with the MBPA. Having the players on here means a lot to me, because being a former player, and I get to reconnect, and just learn and be informed. And, this has been an incredible series. Hopefully we pick it back up for another set. But, I would say all in all, outside of this election being the most important election in our history, voting is definitely local, state, national. That is the most important thing. But I would say for me, the most important thing is to look inside, right? To invest inside, to care inside, to protect inside, and to build and grow in our own ecosystem, our own institutions, right? So the generations after us, right, will now see our names on buildings, right? Our names on statues, our names on your checks that you cash. And so with all that, I would like to thank all our panelists, the voices of our community, the voices of this new generation of world. And I'd like to thank everybody out there for participating and following us for these last 5 weeks. And we will continue next week as we get back to our normal scheduled Business Inside the Game program. So thank you all for participating, and let's go make some money.